Hello. When given this topic, thought it would be interesting to explore to see how can we make the world of work wonderful. Because for many of us, a major part of our time is spent at work during our lifetime, usually 8 hours a day, several days a week, and often it can be more hours than that. And so that can be 50% of our waking time on the days that we are working. And given how much of our time in a day or indeed in a lifetime that we spend at work and how significant a part of our lives it is, I wanted to explore and see how can we make the world of work a wonderful place to be. And so firstly, I would like to look at exploring this from a Spiritist perspective, looking at the teachings of Spiritism. Secondly, from there we learn that work is an opportunity to grow and to develop skills. Thirdly, it's an opportunity to help others, to play our part in our communities that we're a part of, particularly when we work selflessly for others. And then fourthly, looking at how we work, which can be very important, because there are those who work in such a positive and cheerful way, with such a positive attitude, that it generates a great atmosphere at work and generates really healthy, positive energies. People like that are an absolute joy to be around. So just want to look at that and see how can we learn from people like that. Certainly I would love to learn from them so that we can learn to make the world of work a better place. So what perspective can we get on this from Spiritism? In the Spirits book, which is the work compiled by Allan Kardec in the middle of the 19th century, in question 674, he addresses this, and we're told that work is a natural law, it's a law of nature, that we have this impulse, this law effectively pushing us all to work. And in 675, they speak of how every sort of useful occupation is labour. So no, it's not just saying paid work, but any useful occupation. In other words, that would include studies, that would include the arts, it would include those working at home, those caring for loved ones, those working on a voluntary basis. Anything that's useful, a useful way of using our time. Then in question 676, we learn that work is a means of developing our intelligence. They say without work we would stay in our intellectual infancy. And if our body is too weak for physical work, then we can use our intelligence instead. So, for example, we have an amazing example here of Professor Stephen Hawking, who a great cosmologist and scientist who from his early mid-20s, was confined to a wheelchair and yet managed to really advance our thinking on cosmology in particular. So physical ability isn't necessarily a barrier. It can be, but with the right supports, that can help people to participate in a myriad of ways. And there we do still have a lot to learn on how to make work much more accessible for those with different abilities and different needs. But that's another topic for another day. So work serves a very useful purpose. It helps us to develop ourselves, to develop our intelligence. And that intelligence, I would argue, is not just intellectual, but also social, emotional, and psychological as well. Because when we work, generally, we interact with others, with colleagues, customers, patients, if we're in a clinical environment, etc. So let's imagine a wonderful world of work where we work in a way that's about seeing work as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to help others, an opportunity to advance and develop whatever we have, and as a means to evolve ourselves and our society collectively as well. So looking at this, just taking one or two examples that came to mind were, let's say, for example, somebody working as a cleaner who goes from cleaning where everything is great, clean, being really fastidious and thorough in how they work, to then realizing that they can do more than clean, to where they can cleanse the atmosphere, the psychosphere, as we say in Spiritism, cleanse the things, the objects that they touch, that they can cleanse the space that they're in, and through good thoughts, prayers, good energies, they can charge the space that they're in, whether it be a home, a hospital, or a workplace. So cleansing the atmosphere, cleansing the things that they touch, putting in good energies, and praying for those who are in or will be in that space. So in a hospital, for example, that would be incredibly valuable to cleanse the atmosphere, as well as the cleaning of the surfaces of things. Because of the worries of people, that's psychic matter, that's energy that is being emitted. You can feel if you walk into a room where there's been an argument, or walk into a room where there's been laughter and joy, and the difference is palpable for those who are more sensitive. So for those of us who do hidden jobs, we can still influence in positive ways, not just by looking to do our jobs as well as we can, but also by sending out good thoughts that will impact on those that we connect with. So healing thoughts, inspiring thoughts, encouraging thoughts, and encouraging the teams that we're a part of, wishing them well, believing in them, encouraging them, and blessing them, thanking them when necessary, and encouraging them to do better and better work, really lifting the energy within the teams that we're in. So through our thoughts, we can shift the atmosphere, and without people necessarily realizing. And so from there, I'd like to pass on to looking then at work from the next level. So it's not just about what we're doing, it's about what we're doing, or how we're doing it rather. How our mindset is, what our attitude's like, and the energy that we bring to our work. As we may technically be very competent, but what's our attitude like? Because that could either hinder or enhance what we're trying to achieve. And so there are those who've generated such a powerfully positive nature so that it comes naturally to them. They flow positive thinking, positive energies very naturally. It's a reflex. They do it unconsciously, and that generates an atmosphere of light all around them that radiates from them and protects them from the prevailing atmosphere, such as at the moment that we're going through. So the moment that someone like that, who, for example, would be invaluable at the moment in a hospital setting, or in whatever setting or capacity or role that they're in, once they bring in that positivity, bringing in a cheerful disposition, it's incredibly invaluable, because it lifts the spirits of those around them, helping eliminate worries, and instead replacing them with good thoughts, with laughter, with joy, with lighter thinking, and even better, with a really positive, healthy perspective. So, for example, celebrating the improvements that we've seen in mortality rates in COVID. Yes, we're seeing a tremendous surge in caseload, which is very unfortunate. But there have been such advances in treatments that there has been a noticeable drop in mortality rates, and that will hopefully only get better in the times ahead. And of course, then working towards vaccines. And great news that they're from the World Health Organization, we may even have a vaccine before the end of this year, which is earlier than expected. So they focus people's minds on the positive news and lift their spirits and close the door to negativity. And so they leave that behind them like a gift when they leave, so that it's not just a temporary boost when they're around, but they seed ideas and pass on, almost like infect in the most positive way the minds of people with optimism, good vibrations, with positivity, so that they leave the person thinking differently, and it puts them on a different wavelength, on a higher wavelength, and opens their thinking to a more positive perspective, where they can then start to connect to ideas from friends in the spirit world who may be trying to feed comforting thoughts, inspirational thoughts, a perspective that's far, far healthier. But that if we're on a lower wavelength, which many of us often are, that we miss that inspiration. And so people like that, who really can lift people's thinking, lift them to a higher frequency, are doing us all a favor. And so there are those who've developed this ability so that it comes naturally to them. And for the rest of us, it's something that is there for us to learn, so that someday it will become natural for us. And so the first step is deciding that we do want to learn it, and I'd be surprised if anybody wouldn't want to. And then setting out, thinking about how to learn, how to develop that positive mindset, so that we can learn to develop it not just for ourselves, but also to generate clusters of positivity, clusters of optimism, so that it's like healthy tissues and cells in a body fighting back against infection, the same that we're fighting back against the prevailing negativity that we can get in the press and the news, in our social interactions. Or like healthy cells, individuals within society are like healthy cells, becoming stronger, becoming lighter, becoming more numerous, as more and more such positive clusters are generated that can then fight back against unhealthy thinking that has been around for quite some time. And so start to generate waves of optimism, waves of positivity that can begin to join up and connect with others, so that it becomes the norm again. So imagine whole, workplaces, homes, villages and towns becoming these generators of positivity, of optimism, of celebrating what's good, celebrating what's right, focusing on what's right, seeing progress rather than seeing what's not yet done, really focusing on progress, focusing on appreciating what's good, and generating good energies, generating good vibes, seeing the good in themselves, seeing the good in others, seeing the good in life, and then sharing that. So working it like a muscle, like a spiritual muscle, a psychological and emotional muscle, building neuronal pathways in the brain and in the mind to become more and more positive, so that it eventually becomes the norm. In the words of Emmanuel, who is Chico Xavier's spirit guide, until it becomes a mental reflex, that it becomes so strong that it starts to dominate and drown out others who are not positive, who don't even realize that they're being influenced and changed by the positivity of others around them, the consciously chosen positivity of others around them, that they're shifting their thinking without even realizing it, by being exposed, even if it's unconsciously, silently exposed to positive and happy people, that their thoughts, which again is electromagnetic material, is going out and is being unconsciously, if they're insensitive, consciously to a certain extent if they're sensitive mediums, and that they're turning the situation around, that being around positive and happy people impacts us energetically, psychologically and emotionally and spiritually. And then reinforced and made stronger when people speak about it out loud, or start sharing what they're thinking, by sharing it through writing, through speaking about it, sharing what they're focusing on. So again, it's like healthy energy going out into an ecosystem, like fresh, clean water that goes through an ecosystem that's been clogged up with toxic energies and toxic, let's say, dirty water. And instead, clean water starts to flow through, regenerating the ecosystem, healing the ecosystem, and allowing it to flourish again. And we saw this in the early months of the lockdown back in March, where nature, once it was given a break, actually quite quickly started to clear up, the atmosphere over parts of industrialized countries. You could see from space the improvement in the air pollution and the atmosphere. Imagine that on a mental level. The improvement in the atmosphere, if people start thinking more positively, laughter and joy coming back in through the airwaves, in our conversations, in our homes, in our workplaces, and in the press and the news, that would have an incredible impact. And so on one other level, I just wanted to flag that Emmanuel, who I mentioned earlier, in the book Thought and Life, goes on to expand further, saying, when we go beyond fulfilling our duties and responsibilities in whatever role that we have to fulfill, and once we start to give selflessly and work for the good of others, that is then moving spiritually to a whole other level of work. And he makes the point in his words, I quote, "Selfless giving begins where duty ends. Selfless giving begins where duty ends." So once somebody has fulfilled their responsibilities, the doctor, the nurse, somebody working in a clinical environment over these last months who has gone way beyond their immediate responsibilities to care for others, to help to mitigate the impact of COVID. Those who are working tirelessly trying to get a vaccine, a mother engaged often in constant acts of self-sacrifice to care for the little one in their care. And so that level of selfless giving is a whole other dimension and perspective on making work something truly wonderful. So finally, to summarize, firstly, we saw work from a spiritual perspective can be any form of useful occupation, so not just paid work, not just professional work, anything that's useful to us and useful to others. Work is an opportunity for us to learn and to grow, to develop our skills intellectually, psychologically, emotionally, and socially. Work is a way to help others through our work. We depend on each other's work. If everybody stopped work in the morning, we wouldn't have food, we wouldn't have electricity, we wouldn't have so many things. We all depend on each other. It's an opportunity to learn from those who work with a really positive, cheerful attitude and make work a joy, and wonderful to be around people like that, generating what right now are much needed positive energies. And finally, it's a chance for us to eventually learn to work selflessly with no expectation of reward, simply focused on helping others. And so that effectively is giving a glimpse, I think, of a future which is where higher spirits, good spirits already are, where they are accomplished intellectually, psychologically, emotionally, social skills and relationship skills. They work with a very positive, joyful attitude. They work exclusively to help others. They work in a very selfless way. And so they're already there. I guess it's for us to start thinking, how can we work our way towards that so that we see work as an opportunity on many different levels. Thank you.